Shabbat Shalom. Welcome, everyone. It is a delight to be with you here in the sanctuary, with those of you online, Dave, Linda, and so many others. Thank you for being with us. And we're going to get started as we welcome in this beautiful Sabbath, the Shabbat Nachamu, the Sabbath of comfort. You know, it's always called the Shabbat of comfort, the Shabbat that's after Tisha B'Av, the day that marks the saddest day in the Jewish calendar that was observed yesterday. And now we get to enter this space of wholeness and peace. And that is part of what makes Shabbat so precious to us. So we're going to begin with Yedid Nefesh, a prayer that describes our loving relationship with the divine that you can find beginning on page 10 in your red Sidur Lev Shalem. Cantor?
Yep. Yedid nefesh av harachaman, Yedid nefesh av harachaman, Meshochavdach el ritzonach, Meshochavdach yananai el ritzonach, Yarutz avdecha Kemo ayal Yishtachave mul Yananai mul hadarach Ki erav lo Yedidutach Minof etzuf Yananai vechol ta'am Hador na'eziv ha'olam, Hador na'eziv ha'olam, Nafshi cholat ahavatach, Nafshi cholat yananai ahavatach, Elna Na noam zivach az titchazek vetitrapeh vehaitalach na shivchat olam vatik yehemu rachamecha vatik yehemu rachamecha Vechusna al ben ohavach Vechusna yananai al ben ohavach Ki ze kama nichsov nichsav lirot betiferet uzach B'tiferet uzach Ana Eli Machmad libi Chushana Yananai ve'al titalam Higalena ufros chaviv alai Higalena ufros chaviv alai Etzukat shlomach Etzukat shlomach Ufros chaviv alai Etzukat shlomach Ta'ir eretz mikvodach Nagila v'nismechavach Nagila v'nismechavach Maher ahuv Kiva mo'er V'choneni Yananai ki me'olam Yananai 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 yananai
And we turn to page 11, Lechun Ranana.
Lechun Ranana Ladonai, Nania Litzor Hishenu, Nekad Mafanav, Dodos Binodinu Yalo, Kiyokado. Arba'im shana kut bedor va'omaram to'eh levavhem vehem lo yadu derachai asher nishbati ve'api im yevohun el menuchati
13,
Shiru ladonai shir chadash Shiru ladonai kol haaretz Shiru ladonai barech hu shemo basru miyom leyom Yeshuato sapru vagoyim kevodo bechol ha'amim niflotav ki gadol Adonai umhulal meod norahu al kol Elohim yahanai ki kol Elohei amim elilim v'Adonai shamayim asa hod v'hadar lefanav os v'tiferet b'mikdasho havul Adonai mishpechot amim havul Adonai kavod v'oz havul Adonai kevod shemo sehu mincha uvo'u lechatzrotav yainai ishtachavu l'Adonai behadrat kodesh chilu mipanav kol haaretz imru vagoyim Adonai malach aftikon tal baltimot yadin amim mesharim yismechu hashamayim betagel haaretz yiram hayam umelo ya'alo sadai v'chol asher bo yainai az yaranenu kol atzei ya'ar lifnei Adonai kiva lishpot haaretz yishpot tevel betzedek ve'amim bemunato yainai
Page 15.
Adonai malach tagel haaretz yismechu im Rabbi manan v'rarafel seviva tzedek mishpatav mechon kis'o. Ohav Adonai ura shomer nafshot chasidav miyad risha'im yatzilem or zaru al tzadik uyishrei lev simcha simchu tzadikim baronai vehodu lezecher kodsho shiru
17.
Adonai shir chadash. Zamru l'Adonai bechinor v'kol zimra bechinor v'kol zimra b'chatzotrot v'kol shofar hariu lifnei hamelech Adonai yiram hayamum lo tevel v'yoshveva neharot yimachau chaf Yachad harim yiranenu lifnei Adonai kiva lishpot haaretz yishpot tevel betzedek ve'amim b'meisharim.
Page 19.
Adonai malach yegezu ami yoshev kuvim.
Page 20 at the carrot. Romamu.
Roimamu. Okay. Better. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehad kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehad kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehad kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehad kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehad kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehad kodsho.
And we rise as we turn to page 21 for Psalm 29.
Okay. Mizmor LeDavid, Havul Adonai ben Elim, Havul Adonai, Kavod va'oz Yahanai, Havul Adonai, Kevod Shemo Ishtachavu Adonai, B'Hardat Kodesh, Kol Adonai Amayim El HaKavod Hidim, Adonai Amayim Rabim, Kol Adonai Ba'koach Yahanai, Kol Adonai Behadad, Kol Adonai Shover Arazim, Vayshaber Adonai et Arzei Halvanon, Vayarkitem kemo hegel Levanon Vesiryon kemo ven re'emim Yahanai, Kol Adonai Chotzev lahavotesh, Kol Adonai Yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai Yechol elayalot Vayechesof Ye'arot Uvechalo Kulo Omer Kavod Yahanai Adonai Lama Havu Yashava Yeshev Adonai Melech Leolam Adonai Oz Le'amo Yiten Adonai Yevarech et Amo Vashalom Yai nai 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 Yai nai 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 Yai nai 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 Yai nai 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 nai.
And we are seated now as we turn to Lecha Dodi, page 23.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad hishmianu El hamiuchad Adonai echad Uhu shemo echad l'shem multiferet B'li tehila Lecha Dodi likrat kala B'nei Shabbat nekabela Lecha Dodi likrat kala B'nei Shabbat nekabela Likrat Shabbat, lechu v'nelcha ki hi mekor, הברכה מראש מקדם, נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה קומי צאי, מתוך ההפכה רב לך שבט בעמק הבכה, והוא יחמול עלייך חמלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התנערי, התנפקו מלבשי בגדי, תפארתך מעל יד בן ישי, בית הלחמי קרבה אל נפשי גאלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי כבוד אדוני, עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לא תבושי ולא תקמי, מה תשתוכחי ומה תהמי. בך יחסו עניי עמי ונבנתה עיר אל תילה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. והיו למשיסה שוסייך, ורחקו כל מבלעייך. יסיס עלייך אלוהייך, כמשוש חתן על כלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. ימין ושמאל תפרוצי, ואת אדוני תעריצי. היריש בן פרצי, ונשמחה ונגילה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
And we rise and we turn towards the door and we take just a moment to let go of all the anxieties and stresses and pains of the week that has passed and to enter into this sacred moment of Shabbat. So we welcome the Sabbath bride, the Sabbath queen. Bo'i v'shalom, come in peace, O Sabbath.
בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי כלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה.
And we are seated. We take a moment and we turn towards the Lang family. And we offer you these words of comfort as you remember Edie. Hamakom yenachem etchem betoch shar Or Tzion v'Shalayim. May the Holy One comfort you along with all other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. And you know that you are held in a web of love and that you are cherished by this community, and that as lonely as you feel in her absence, that you are far from alone. We turn to the Psalm for Shabbat, page 27.
Tov lehodot l'Adonai u'zamer l'shimcha elyon. Tov lehodot l'Adonai u'zamer l'shimcha elyon. Lehagid b'boker chasdecha ve'emunatcha b'leilot. להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות. טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך העליון. טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך העליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות. להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות. צדיק התמר יפרח כארץ בלבנון יזכה שתולים בבית אדוני בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו עוד ינובון בשיבה דשנים ורעננים יהיו להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי ולא עוולה תבוא.
Page 29.
אדוני מלכות לבש לבש אדוני זאת הזאת אהב תיקון לבוא בצדק. מקולות מים רבים אדירים משברי ים אדיר במרום אדוני עדותיך נאמנו מאוד לביתך נאווה קודש אדוני לאורך ימים.
Mourners and those observing a yard site, rise at this time in body or spirit, joining with me in the words of the Kaddish, page 30. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbi.
Amen.
Ve'alama tivara kerutei, ve'yamalich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zaman kari ve'imeru, amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbi mevarach, le'alam ul'omei ul'maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpawar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, Shmei dekudsha berich hu le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma ve'imeru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imeru amen. Oseh shalom b'maromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshevei tevel ve'imeru amen. Shabbat Shalom. Wonderful to be with all of you here in the sanctuary this evening, and also to be with those of you joining us online. Dave, Linda, Leslie, Connie, and so many others, know that your presence is felt with us here in the sanctuary. I mentioned in my email that went out this morning that this Shabbat is my bar mitzvah anniversary, and in fact this weekend is 2 bar mitzvahs since my bar mitzvah, so you can figure out how old I turned technically earlier today on the Jewish calendar, though my English birthday is still a few weeks away. And one of the things that I recall from my bar mitzvah being the anxious and excited and eager 13-year-old who was very excited to share how knowledgeable he was about Jewish things at that time. Cantor was very surprised that that was the case then as well. I spoke about, there's a lot in this week's Torah portion, by the way, including Avadim Hayinu and the wise son from the Passover Seder, including a number of different specific language that ends up in our Torah service and in other parts of our liturgy. But most famously in this week's Torah portion is the Shema Ve'ahavta and the Ten Commandments. And I shared at my bar mitzvah about one of the Ten Commandments, the fourth one, which is the commandment to observe the Shabbat. And in fact, I referenced what we prayed just a few moments ago at the beginning of L'cha Dodi when we said, Shamor ve'zachor b'dibur achad. Because the Ten Commandments are repeated, they're in Exodus, and then they're also in Deuteronomy this week. And the fourth commandment is rendered differently in those two places. In Exodus, we're told to remember the Sabbath, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat, and to keep it holy, and that the reason for the Sabbath is because God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day God rested. And then in Deuteronomy, we're instructed, Shamor et Yom HaShabbat l'kodsho, to protect, to guard the Sabbath day and keep it holy. And we're given the reason for the Sabbath is because God took us out of Egypt, and now we are free, and we are free to observe and to take a day that is the taste of freedom. And so the Sabbath has, from the Ten Commandments, these two renditions, these two different agendas, but also these two different sets of obligations. To remember, Zachor, and to observe or keep, Shamor. And when I teach the Sabbath, when I teach about Shabbat in my Introduction to Judaism classes, right, I talk about this in terms of the things that we refrain from doing in observance of the Sabbath, Shamor, and the things that we remember to do, special for the Sabbath, Zachor. But one of the things that I uncovered when I was studying for my bar mitzvah is that there is a tradition that says the reason that we light 2 candles on Shabbat is because one is for Zachor and one is for Shamor, that we have 2 different obligations, and that's recognized in the 2 candles. And then in my bar mitzvah sermon, my bar mitzvah talk, I talked about why that was wrong. Why historically that was deeply problematic. And that, yes, Cantor thinks this is hilarious. Andre too, that you know me well, right? I talked about why this was wrong. I talked about how in ancient times, people needed candles in different places to be able to see, that there was one in, for the restroom and one for over here because people's homes weren't the way that they're structured now. We didn't have electric lights. And there were other reasons that we needed 2 candles that were entirely not spiritual. And I said that this is wishful thinking. But I want to revisit that and say, I may have been a little bit judgmental as a 13-year-old. May have been a little bit extreme in that moment when I said, that this is wrong. Because I want to say that there's actually something really beautiful that happens when we light those 2 candles, right? That when we hold our hands together and when we bring in that moment and there's that moment of profound stillness and there's a transformation that happens in our sacred space and we enter the holiness of Shabbat. And that if the reason that we light 2 candles is perhaps or indeed today, because, and for you in your heart, because of this idea that God in one moment was able to utter 2 distinct commands, and to remind us that there are things on Shabbat that make it special that we do, and things that are on Shabbat that make it special that we refrain from doing. That Shabbat simultaneously reminds us of the creation of the world and that miracle and God's rest in that moment, but also is able to hold for us the space of recognizing that we are free and that our ancestors weren't, and that we have the power to observe and to refrain and to celebrate in this way. How much the more so beautiful is that? Right? So to my younger self, I want to say, there's beauty in this, even if historically it may not have been the origin of 2 candles, right? Being able to look at those 2 candles and assign them this meaning is actually something that can be deeply fulfilling and elevate the spirituality of that moment, right? That the idea of 2 distinct obligations that both share equal light and that radiate in our lives, that are able to elevate us each and every Shabbat through what we do and what we refrain from doing, through what we choose to remember and how we choose to make meaning, that in fact that's something extraordinary and beautiful. And so I want to amend, my bar mitzvah sermon. I want to go back and I want to say, no, you're missing something, right? And to be able to say that actually there's something truly miraculous about being asked and obligated and commanded, as we are in the Ten Commandments, to take a moment for ourselves, to take a Sabbath, to take a rest, to take a break, that there's something profoundly healthy, right? That when we think about the Ten Commandments, the 613 commandments that are given in the Torah, it's easy for those that are most observant to become very anxious, right? Am I doing it the way that God wants me to do? Am I living up to the standard that is set by my tradition? And to be able to recognize that one of the most sacred obligations in our tradition is actually to step back and to realize, to remember, and to guard. To be able to, in our observance of Shabbat, relax and take a deep breath and welcome in sacred time and let go of all of the pain and stress and anxiety and all of the other things that lead us to a sense of despair and doubt and uncertainty. That's something deeply and profoundly holy. So I want to bless all of us that when we light those two candles, let them be Shamor and Zachor for you. Let them be this moment of remembrance, this moment of observance, this moment of profound sanctity, and this recognition that the Sabbath is a gift of divine love. The other thing that we have in our Torah portion that is most spoken about is the Shema. And more than anything, the Shema is about recognizing our love for God and God's love for us. And Shabbat, in all the ways that we do it, through what we do and what we refrain from doing, is certainly a reflection of that deep love. Shabbat Shalom. So with that understanding, we're going to turn now to our evening service. Andre Ivory will lead us in the Aravit this evening. This, in addition to being this morning, was my birthday. It's also my birthday, the 10th of Av, the day after Tisha B'Av, is also Andre Ivory's conversion anniversary.
What was it that you called it?
Convertiversary.
Convertiversary?
That's right, a convertiversary. All right, that we are blessed, that it has been years and years, and it's been one more year.
Gee, how can you sing that? Happy convertiversary?
I mean, there's some funny things about this day. All right, friends, I was almost 3 weeks late. I was supposed to be birthed during the 3 weeks. These are 3 weeks of sadness that lead up to Tisha B'Av. And my mother continues to be convinced that, I was postponed in order to be that Redeemer child. And that there is a tradition that those that are born on Tisha B'Av and the day after Tisha B'Av, that there is a higher likelihood that they might be Messiah. That's not saying anything about myself,
I feel like
of course.
That's every Jewish mother's dream right there, is to say that they're birthing the Mashiach.
But there are such traditions. So
I can't believe with
coming
that
to the Jewish people that's also being born on this day.
But Rabbi Green, with that pressure, how did you not become a doctor?
This is Mashiach energy right here. There you go.
I don't need any more responsibilities.
All right, no. All right, so our Savior, Andre Ivory will lead us now. We're going to rise now for the Baruch Hu, the call to prayer, page 39.
Okay. Yes, I'm going to turn around. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed.
And we are seated.
Mevir yom mevi laila mavdil ben yom uvein laila Adonai tzvot shemo el chai v'kayam tamidim leolam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai hamari v'aravi.
Page 40.
Avat Olam Beit Yisrael. V'avdecha al tasir mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael.
Page 41.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, V'chol levavcha, v'chol nafshecha, v'chol meodecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi metzavecha, hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibartam, b'shivdecha b'veitecha, uvlechtecha v'aderech, uvshochbecha uvkumecha, Ukshartam leot al yetecha, ve'uletotafot beinenecha, uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvihisharecha.
V'hayom shamoy tishmaz l'asher nachim.
Adonai Elohechem Emet.
43 of Emunachos of
Emunachos.
Page 44.
Malchuto beraton kiblu aleichem, Moshe u'Miriam uvnei Yisrael achanu shira, b'simcha rabba ve'amru kulam, mi chamocha
bo'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef elem.
Malchutecha ra'u v'necha Kiram lifnei Moshe, ze li'anu ve'amru,
Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed.
V'nehemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov, v'golo b'yad hazach mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, gal Yisrael.
Page 45, Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu.
Hashkivenu, what another something?
Ushmor teitenu v'reinu l'chaim l'shalom me'atavi ad olam ufros alenu sukat shlomecha baruch atah Adonai apores sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
We rise as we turn to page 46 of Veshamru.
Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Shabbos
La'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat La'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam.
Beni uvein v'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam, oti le'olam, oti le'olam.
Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam.
Ki sheshet yamim Asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz
Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam.
Uvayom hashvi shavat vayinafash
Shavat vayinafash
Shavat vayinafash
Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
יעמד דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי.
בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל. בעגלה ובזמן קריב.
ואמרו
אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך. לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה.
בריחו.
לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה.
תושבח חלתה ונחמתה.
דמירן בעלמה ואמרו.
Amen. We recite now the Friday night Amidah in silent standing devotion. It begins on page 47 and concludes on page 52. This is an opportunity not only to offer the prayers on the page, but also whatever's in your heart at this time. When you've completed your personal prayer, feel free to be seated.
Say shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel, ve'imru,
Imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael.
ve'imeru.
Amen. We offer a prayer of healing for all those who are ill.
Mi shebeirach avoteinu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
May the Holy One who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who brought healing to Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those for whom we now pray, including Eliezer Leib, Yocheved bat Yona Verezel, Carol Padway, Tova Tikva bat Avraham Verut, Fega Ora bat Matisyahu Vepesha, Susan Patlak, David ben Elisha, Gary Parcel, Ephraim ben Shmuel Vesara, Shmuel Yaakov ben Zev Verivka, Devorah Leah bat Michael, Nachum ben Yaakov Batya, Yosef Tzvi ben Fega, Lori Shapiro, Kalman ben Chaim, Zissel bat Gittel, Tuni Christy Robinson, Michal Yocheved bat Chaim Vachana, Jeannie Eisenberg, Philip Eisenberg, Marjorie Simon, Chaim Leib ben Pinchas Vizelda, Barbara Mark Dreyfus, Jody Chessman, Nissan ben Fredel, Reuven ben Mendel V'chayariva, Zadel bat Yeta, Celia Schreiber, Neil Farber, Ellen Bresnick, Michael Donahue, Chaim ben Esther, Masha Miriam bat Shafsa, Lawrence Cohen, Batya Esther bat Ephraim, Reuven ben Root, Yehoshua ben Sarah, Leon Levine, Chaya Leah Pesia bat Shmuel Yosef, Efreda Dora, Malka bat Hadassah, Shoshana Sharon bat Reuven Vachana, Shmuel Velvo ben Devora, Chaya bat Devora, Bluma Binder, Bob Sutz, Ari Kenny, Leor Yisrael ben Rachel, John Granick, Marty Cohen, Leib Ahon ben Moshe Ve'eda, Fegel Bracha bat Michal Meir, David ben Brindle, Rivka Shendel bat Shaya Vachana, Shalom ben Pesel, Chaim Michal ben Yitzchak V'Yocheved, Eliyahu David ben Yehudit Chana, Shira bat Chaya v'Moshe, Perla bat Chila v'Esther, Barak ben Bracha, and all others who we hold in our hearts at this time. May the Holy One restore them to fullness of health, of body, of mind, and of spirit, blessing them and those dedicated to their care, and all others on the journey, God willing, towards healing and recovery.
Mi shebeirach imotenu mekol habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Refuah shlema, we rise for Aleinu, page 56.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol ateit gedula leyotzeh breshit shelo asanu aratzot velo samanu k'mishpachot hadama shelo sam helkenu kahem vegor aleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamalachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kagatu b'Toratech Adonai yimloch le'olam v'hed
V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai le'melech al kol haaretz bayom hahu.
Bayom hahu
Yeh Adonai echad U'shemo echad. And we are seated. This week we recognize the yahrzeits of Dottie Friedlander, Gary Friedlander's mother, Maureen Dorn, Megan Jalowick's mother and Theo's grandmother, Sarah Tseplowitz, Cheryl Jalowick's mother and Jen Croce's grandmother, as well as Jeremy and Joshua Jalowick's grandmother, Alan Botwinick, Philip Jalowick's grandfather, and Jen Croce, Jeremy Jalowick, and Joshua Jalowick's great-grandfather, Rosemary and Philip Weinstein, sister and brother-in-law of Deborah and Myra Weinstein, the nieces of Phyllis Weinstein, and Deborah and Myra Weinstein, all of whom are nieces of Phyllis Weinstein, Rose Finkelstein, Marvin Finkelstein's first wife, Emil Bartos, Judy Wagman's father, Frida Albert, Gail Weiss's mother, Paul Ruderman, Diane Ruderman's late husband, Rose Gottfried, Sue Kern's mother, Nathan Cole, Sherry Cohen's father, Ray Underberg, Susan Person's grandmother, Abraham Bankendorf, Elliot Bankendorf's father, Freda Schutzbank, Syra Schutzbank's mother-in-law, and Lisa Simon, Harvey Schutzbank, and Michael Schutzbank's grandmother, Gary Matlick, Ken Matlick's father, Maurice Arnfeld, Dina Zell's grandfather, Stephen Gross, Mark Gross's brother, Carolyn Sue Bernstein, Sam Leopold's mother, Donald Nitskin, Gary Nitskin's father, Jeanette Salet Reingold, Judy, your mother-in-law, Pauline Zinman, Ted Zinman's mother and Mark's grandmother. And of course, we also remember Edie Lang, Frank Lang's mother, and Eddie Lang's grandmother, who passed away earlier this week, and who we're currently observing Shiva for. And also, I share with you the sad news of the passing of Tema Silberman, who was a leader in our community for many, many years. We pray to Hein Nishmatam Tzurot B'Tzura Chaim, that the souls of all of our loved ones past be bound in the bond of life eternal. I invite mourners and those observing a yard site at this time to rise in body or spirit and join with me in the Mourner's Kaddish on page 58. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah be'alama divara kerutei v'yamalich malchutei b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'zaman kari ve'imiru. Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach le'alam ul'olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpawar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekutsha barich hu le'ilah min kol berchata b'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alama ve'imeru. Amen. Yehei shalama Rabbah min shamaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imeru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshevei tevel ve'imeru. Amen. We are seeing it's my pleasure to invite Rob Young, for whom this weekend is also a bar mitzvah anniversary, to share this evening's announcements.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Rob.
So, Rabbi, you remembered all those cool things from your bar mitzvah. When I became a bar mitzvah, it was so long ago that all I can remember is that there was a cream cheese in the shape of an R and a mock chopped liver in the shape of a Jewish star. That's all I remember about my bar mitzvah.
Good memories.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Rabbi Green, Cantor Rubinstein, and Andre Ivory for leading us in Shabbat services this evening. It was great seeing the three of you up here together. It was like a little band. Thank you, Marie E. Lewis, for your technical assistance. Enough from the peanut gallery. If you haven't renewed your Gift of the Heart membership yet, this is a great week to do it. I would remind you that Rosh Hashanah is 7 weeks from this weekend. Sorry. Come next Friday night for a special blessing for Or Tzion youth as we recognize they're starting back to school. We're going to have a blessing of the backpacks. Please bring a new or gently used backpack to Valley students in need and stay for a dessert oneg afterwards. Registration is open for religious school. Check the e-bulletin. Connect, catch up, and create with Wilcott at their pottery and painting event on August 27th at 1 p.m. Details are in the weekly bulletin. There's already a lot of buzz and a lot of activity happening in the synagogue. I hope you will participate, and I hope you'll come tomorrow morning and join us for Shabbat, when there'll be probably 8 people celebrating the anniversary of their bar mitzvah.
There's a lot of us. All right. We're going to turn now to Kiddush, which you can find on page 55. Please rise for Kiddush.
Sav Richa V'rai.
L'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'yava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lemahaseh v'reishit Yehu yom techila lemikrai kodesh zecher l'tziyat Mitzrayim Kivanu v'charta v'otanu kidashta mikol amim v'shabbat kodshecha v'ava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen.
L'chaim.
For grape juice,
L'chaim to everybody
fine
on live
vintage.
stream too. Is that wine or grape juice?
Whatever it is, just add sugar.
So what should we? What would you like to conclude with, Andre, tonight?
Well, in your honor. Mashiach, Mashiach, Mashiach. Oy, 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 oy. Mashiach, Mashiach, Mashiach. Oy, 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 oy.
אני מאמין באמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח. אני מאמין באמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח. אני מאמין. משיח. Ay, 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 ay.
Wow, he really took it and ran.
Mashiach. Ay, 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 ay. Mashiach. Ay, 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 ay. Mashiach. Ay, 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 ay.
More wine. Okay.
שיבוא. Whoa.
Adonaios le'amo yiten. Adonai yivarech amo v'shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, everybody on live stream.
Shabbat shalom, everyone from Sholo. Glad to have you with us.